a quick little video about how I played with toys as an autistic child, because I've seen a lot about how autistic children play unimaginatively, but I wasn't like that, and because I wasn't like that, I know that there will be other children who are autistic who are labelled unimaginative, but who are actually highly imaginative. I know I'm not the only one, so I just wanted to cover it in this video. So the stereotypical way of an autistic child playing with toys is where the child will line things up, potentially spin things, potentially not speak out loud when they're playing, potentially just do movements with the object. But although that may look unimaginative, because most neurotypical children will sort of have long set storylines to their playing that you can see them perform, like they might move the characters, they might speak as if they are the characters and things like that. Just because an autistic child looks like they're not being imaginative doesn't mean that they're not being imaginative. So when I was younger, I did line toys up an awful lot, and I had a lot of fun doing that. I would line toys up, but that was part of an imaginative game. One of my special interests was schools, which sounds strange, but I was really obsessed with schools. So I would play the game where the students, the characters that I was playing with, I had little figurines, they were lining up for school. That's why I would line up toys. So despite it looking unimaginative, it did actually have a sort of imaginary role play thing going on in my head. And just because I didn't move the characters around and like speak as if I was the characters, doesn't mean I wasn't being imaginative. I was being more imaginative than the average child because the game was going on in my head. I would always visualize in my head what was going on in the game. I didn't need to move the figures around to do that because my imagination was already so vivid. I didn't need the help of the objects moving about and me speaking as if I am the object to know what was going on. Now, one way that I could have been seen as unimaginative is because the games I played were pretty much always the same. Yes, that does seem unimaginative, but I still don't see it as that unimaginative because there was a reason that I was playing the same game over and over again, and it was because it made me happy. When you're autistic, you will often feel very overstimulated because we're very sensitive to sensory input, we're very sensitive to pretty much everything. Everything can be a little bit harder when you're autistic. So to find something that is very routine can calm us, and me playing the same game over and over again is like when I watch the same film over and over again or listen to the same song over and over again. It brings a sense of familiarity, and that helps us feel calm when everything else is unpredictable, and that can make us very anxious. So there's actually nothing wrong with an autistic child playing the same game over and over again, because if it makes us happy, that's kind of the point in playing. I don't think we should be forced to play in a certain way just because it seems typical, because then we don't have a way to relax as kids. Like, if you can't relax through playing, then what are you supposed to do? If playing seems like a chore, then it's no longer fun. If playing, you're not allowed to do it in your own way and you're told how to do it, how is that improving someone's imagination if they're being told how to play? Brambles. As well as the spinning objects. When I was younger, I would spin objects, and I remember like I would play with like a piece of string and just make it go round and around and around, and I would watch it. And again, it looks unimaginative, but it wasn't. The reason I would do that is because I was imagining that it was a sort of Ferris wheel, merry-go-round, some sort of fairground ride. So I was being imaginative, highly imaginative, because although it didn't look like it because I was just staring at a piece of string going round and round, in my head it was actually a whole story going on. They were on this merry-go-round. Bramble! Now, one way that I was a bit rigid when I was playing is I really didn't want to play with other kids a lot of the time. So we'd been playing with our figurines. I would be like on my own and the other kids would be playing together. They might want to play with me, but when they wanted to play with me, I was like, no, because I had my own set thing of what I wanted to do. And because playing is supposed to be something that makes you feel calm, I just wanted to play by myself and do the calming game that I usually play, the schools game. But obviously, because we all think differently, the other children probably wouldn't want to play that school game. They would want to play their own thing. But to me, that was just irritating, really irritating. And because playing is supposed to be fun, and it's not fun if your whole idea of what the game is gets messed up by someone else wanting to play something different. And although some people would say like, well, you should make the child like play with the other kids because that will get them set up for the uncertainty of the real world, I would actually just say, because playing is supposed to be what's relaxing, A kid does need that downtime. Just let them do what they want to do. Because as adults, we need our own alone time and our own time to relax as well. You know, people might go out for a walk or watch TV, but if someone came up and said to you, that's not appropriate, that's not how most people do it, how dare you? Or if you had a favourite show that you loved watching and someone said, no, most people don't like that show, that's not okay, even if it helps you relax. You've got to watch this show that you don't like because everyone else thinks that's the greatest show. It's kind of like saying that. When I was younger, I would also sort of tap the toys when I was playing with them, and that was stimming, self-stimulatory behaviour. And although that looked very atypical because most children don't do that, it wasn't something to be thwarted or changed, because for me, stimming happens more when I'm daydreaming and imagining things, and because I was being so creative in my head rather than moving the toys around and looking like I'm being imaginative on the outside, most of it was going on in my head, so I was stimming because that helps me daydream. Stimming can help feel like it releases endorphins, and it can make us really happy and calm. So again, that's not something that should be changed unless it's like injuring us, but you know, harmlessly tapping a toy doesn't do any harm, it just makes us feel good, so let us do it. One strange thing is I feel like it's said that autistic children don't like role-playing games, and I kind of saw this in myself. Like, a lot of role-playing games I did like, specifically like schools obviously, and families, I like those ones. But I once went through a phase when I really struggled to play role-play games, even if it was a school game, because it was very hard for me to differentiate the game from real life, and there wasn't a specific end to the game, and I felt like I was trapped in the roleplay. I felt like I was trapped in the fake school game, and I couldn't get out of it, and that made me really, really anxious, because there wasn't a distinct, alright, it's ending now. That freaked me out. At times, I was overly imaginative to the point where it caused harm. So, you know, saying autistic people lack imagination, not technically true, but this was part of the literal thinking. I took a game way too literally. I remember when I was like maybe 4 or 5, we were playing a game where we had to bite crocodiles. It's sort of an adventure game. I took it too literally and was so stuck in the game that I bit another child until they bled, thinking that they were a crocodile. That's overly literal and caused a lot of harm. Beans. So yeah, that wasn't great. That is something that you would need to redirect and change, because obviously we can't go around hurting other kids. Repetition can be quite calming for autistic people, but not just autistic people. Like, people with anxiety can also find repetition quite calming. I mean, now these are really like in trend. It's not just autistic people who like these, neurotypicals like these as well. But now that I'm an adult, I still play with these things, and I will literally just sit there for ages just doing it over and over and like just turn it around. And although it seems pretty unproductive, for me it's quite calming because it's just the same repetition over and over again. I know what to expect, and for some reason it does feel like a mini accomplishment when I pop all the bubbles in it. It's like dopamine. So yeah, that's something that I still do quite a lot. I also feel like as well, I did play with toys longer than most kids. Bramble bush, that's a very random tick. I did play with toys a lot longer than the average child, but again, there's nothing wrong with that. If like a teenager wants to play with toys, then that's cool, let them. It's what makes them happy. Just because it's not seen as normal by society standards doesn't mean that a person shouldn't do it if it makes them feel better. I remember when I was 12, I would say to my mum, like, I don't think the girls at school will play with toys like I do, because when I was 12, I loved my little figurines. I played with Go-Go Crazy Bones, La La Loopsy Minis, Squinkies, little Disney figures, and Moshi Monsters figures, like any little figure. I absolutely adored them. But I remember being like, well, I don't think the other kids at school do it. Like, the other kids at school, we were 12, they were like the popular sort of group. They had handbags, they were acting like they were adults, and I was there like, I don't feel like they play with toys like I do. But you know what, that doesn't matter because it made me happy, so what? I don't think we should like try to be like other people if that isn't authentic to us, or try to play or have fun in a certain way that isn't actually fun to us just because it's what's seen as typical by society. Forms of playing that meet our sensory needs are absolutely brilliant. So obviously, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you may have seen me rock back and forth quite a lot. I often do that. Wow. And that's why I've always loved swings so much. Brambles, I still do it now sometimes, but like, I would be on the swings for ages. When I was 17, I'd spend hours on the swings. And although some people might think it's strange that a 17-year-old would want to spend ages on the swing, that was partly over daydreaming. Some people might think it's strange, but it was meeting my sensory needs, and now at 19 I still go on the trampoline because it meets my sensory needs. It allows me to stim in the way I need to stim and gives me the sort of vestibular input and proprioceptive input that I need to function. It makes me feel happy, so just because it's not seen as typical by society's standards potentially doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's really funny as well though, because I've had to accommodate the way I use the trampoline to my other issues, because I have episodes of muscle weakness, but sometimes, because I have muscle weakness a lot of the time, I'll still want to go on the trampoline, so I kind of just lay on my back and my legs will just go up, and I'll kind of bounce on my back for ages because I can't bounce typically by standing up when I feel that weak. But I've accommodated myself. We can accommodate the way we have fun in a way that works for us as well. What's really strange, I don't know if other people have this, but when I would sort of get so sucked into an imagination game, I would feel overly stimmy, and that wasn't a bad thing, but it just felt very strange because I would be so stimmy, just so stimmy. That's the name of my fidget shop, by the way. But I feel stimmy as in I would just constantly have to stim, constantly have to move. If I imagine so much, I am that creative and that imaginative, then it does affect me in motor ways because I will have to move more, and although that seems abnormal, it's not really something I can control. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. I hope you enjoyed this little video about how I played with toys as an autistic child. I'm really interested to hear other people's experiences about how they played with toys as an autistic child, how it was different from neurotypical children, or how they think the stereotype of how autistic kids play is not accurate or accurate. I'm really interested to hear that, so please comment that down below if you would like to. Bye!